Irene and her only daughter, Kosi, lived like complete strangers. Each day brought a new wave of punishment for the little Kosi. Irene treated her with intense hatred and cold detachment. Neighbors and even Kosi's teachers began to suspect she wasn't Irene's biological daughter, perhaps a child picked up from the street. But there were mysteries no one could solve. Why Irene hates her little girl so much, and then Kosi's father. No one had ever seen or heard of him. Irene never spoke of him. Since moving into the neighborhood, she kept to herself, never welcoming visitors or engaging with anyone. Her face was hard and void of a smile. Kosi's days were filled with tears and loneliness, even at school. Though still very young, she endured great pain. Each night, she wept quietly as she lay on the bare cold floor, her usual sleeping spot. Irene didn't bother to hide her hatred. Her teachers noticed and began to care for Kosi. One of them, Madam Betty, treated her like her own child. Kosi's neat hair and healthy appearance were thanks to Madam Betty, who fed her, styled her hair, and occasionally gave her beautiful dresses. Irene never cared. She spent freely on herself, ignoring her daughter. On Kosi's 7th birthday, her teachers and classmates surprised her with a visit to her home, following a school tradition. They arrived singing and cheering, bringing joy and laughter for the first time. Irene smiled, though it was clearly forced. She laughed with them, served rice with assorted meat and drinks. Everyone was delighted to see Kosi's smile, a rare sight. As the sun began to set, the girls left, feeling satisfied that they had brought happiness to the quiet girl. But once they were gone, Irene hissed and packed all the leftover food, leaving only a piece of dry bread and a cup of water for Kosi. The little girl sat quietly, hugging herself, watching her mother enjoy pepper jollof rice and chicken. She dared not cry aloud. If she did, Irene would shove a handkerchief in her mouth to silence her. Kosi sobbed silently as she nibbled on the dry bread, her usual meal. It was either that or soaked garri. Thankfully, Madam Betty fed her properly at school. At home, Kosi did most of the chores, washing clothes too heavy for her age. If I see you near that washing machine, you will see what I will do to you, Irene yelled. She scrubbed floors, washed dishes, while Irene sat in her room, often lost in thought or weeping. Kosi sometimes fell asleep on the cold floor, but Irene was never moved. She would glance at her and walk away. Despite having running water at home, Irene forced Kosi to fetch water from a distant public tap. Neighbors, aware of the situation, began to suspect something was terribly wrong. Some helped Kosi carry the heavy gallons, but none dare escort her to the gate for fear of Irene's wrath. One rainy evening, after a day full of chores and punishment, 7-year-old Cozy walked into Irene's room. She knelt on the cold towels, her dress dirty, hands trembling. "Mommy, please, if I did something wrong, I'm sorry." Irene was lost in painful memories, her eyes filled with hidden tears. "Mommy, please, I'm sorry for whatever I've done. Please don't hate me," Cozy whispered again. Irene stood motionless by the window, arms folded, her face emotionless. She said nothing. Cozy's knees began to ache, and she eventually walked away in silence. A single tear slid down Irene's cheek, not from the present, but from a storm that had raged inside her for years. Then came a hot Saturday. Cozy struggled with chores, while Irene sat under a shaded hat, scrolling through her phone. As Cozy passed by with a heavy bucket on her head, their eyes met. "Cozy, my daughter, put the water down and come here," Irene said, her voice trembling. Cozy froze. Did she just call me her daughter? A bright smile spread across her face. "Yes, Mommy," Cozy replied. "I think I need to take you shopping. Your clothes are worn out. I'll buy you some toys too." Overjoyed, Cozy quickly got ready. They traveled to a store in a nearby town. Inside, Cozy browsed the toy aisle, excitement shining in her eyes. But Irene had a different plan. Quietly, she slipped out of the mall, running and running as fast as her leg can take her. She never looked back. Cozy waited and waited. She wandered the mall, then the street, hungry, frightened, alone. As night fell, she sat hopelessly on the roadside. A red SUV sped toward her. The driver noticed her too late. Cozy stood to move, but was too weak. The car struck her. She rolled onto the tarred road and fell into a gutter, her head hitting the edge. The driver, Mr. Jones, a respected businessman, rushed her to the hospital. Surgery was done. Mr. Jones donated blood. Cozy survived, but lost her memory. No name, no past. Mr. Jones and his wife took her in. They named her Annabel. She had no idea that they weren't her real family. They raised her like their own, enrolling her in the best school in the state, alongside their son, Ikenna. Cozy, now called Annabel, blossomed into a brilliant young woman. At 26, she became one of the country's youngest cardiac surgeons. Meanwhile, Irene lived alone, bitter and broken. The peace she expected after abandoning Cozy never came. Instead, she carried bitterness daily. One day, she collapsed on the roadside from a heart attack. Coincidentally, Mr. Jones was driving by. He rushed her to the hospital. It was the same hospital where Kosi now worked. Kosi performed the surgery and it was successful. When Irene woke up, she stared at her doctor's face and froze. "Kosi," she whispered. "My daughter." Annabel blinked. "I'm sorry, ma. You must be mistaking me for someone else. I'm Annabel, not Kosi." "No, I'm not," Irene said, pulling out her phone. Scrolling through old pictures, she showed a photo of Annabel the day she abandoned her at the mall. Annabel stood stunned, rigid, and confused. The photo looked just like her. Just then, Mr. Jones entered. Irene showed him the photo. "That's her," he gasped. "This was you, Annabel." Annabel was stunned. "Wait, you mean you're not my real parents?" Mr. Jones nodded. "I hit you with my car that day. After you recovered and couldn't remember anything, we named you Annabel." Tears filled Annabel's eyes. Irene dropped to her knees and confessed. Once a promising young woman, she had been adored by her parents, Mark and Tasha. But one night, Mark's men broke into their home. No one came to help. Her parents were murdered. She was raped. Days later, she discovered she was pregnant, with no support and a child she didn't want. Irene spiraled into bitterness. Every time she looked at Annabel, she saw her attackers. "I thought I could erase the past by getting rid of you, but it only worsened my pain. I came back to look for you, but you were gone. The guilt has haunted me ever since. I'm sorry, my Kosi." Irene wept on her knees. Annabel gently pulled her up and hugged her. "Please, Mom, let's talk about this later. You need to recover first." A week later, Irene was discharged and invited Annabel to her home. The house felt oddly familiar. In her old room, memories returned. Crying on cold floors, carrying heavy buckets, the loneliness. She froze. Her face hardened. "I didn't know how to love you. I was broken." Irene sobbed, kneeling once again. Annabel walked out in silence. "Please, don't go," Irene cried aloud. Back home, Kosi told Mr. Jones everything. He sighed and said, "My daughter, sometimes people hurt others because they haven't healed. Your mother was wounded. Now she needs your love to truly heal. Maybe you should see a counselor together." Annabel's heart softened. The next day, she and Mr. Jones visited Irene. They talked, they cried, they began counseling. Months passed. They healed. Annabel forgave her mother. They reconnected finally as mother and daughter. Some children are born from pain, but no matter how a child is conceived, They can still be a blessing. If you have a child from a traumatic experience, don't reject them. Don't let your pain become their burden. They might just be the hope the world needs, like Annabel. If you find this video educative and inspiring, please hit the like button, help me to grow by clicking on the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Thanks for watching and see you in my next story.